Hi, everybody. I'm Suzanne Shirley, Emerald Ambassador with Plexus, and we're here with the Freedom Team tonight with another installation of our 25 Ways to Win with People. And we are starting on chapter 13. We're doing 13 through 16 tonight, and it's really, this book, I don't know about you guys, but I just love this book. It's so easy to read. It's fast reading, but yet the concepts within each chapter are weighty, meaning they're not just easy little things that we can just start doing. These are skills that we have to learn. Now, are they hard? No, but they require action. They require thought. They require some pre-planning. They require some just being aware of your circumstances, your surroundings, being ready in the moment, and being self-aware and socially aware. So knowing yourself and socially knowing the needs and the heart of others that are in your immediate presence and being able to act. Now, are we going to perfect these 25 ways to win with people in a short amount of time? No. And I think Jen Hawkins, when she gave the recommendation of pick 3 or 4 and just be really aware of those 3 or 4 and try to find ways to implement those, in your immediate circumstances when they arise, and just being more aware. And when we are in the pursuit of mindfulness and positive thinking and doing the positive affirmations, I don't know if you guys remember this, but when I was teaching that to you, and I asked you to start noticing what are some of the things that you're telling yourself all day long? What are some of your self-talk phrases that you hear yourself saying to yourself all the time? And you had to be mindful of those things. You started to notice those negative things coming through your head, the way you talk to yourself, and you were just being more aware. Well, this is the same idea. You're going to have to just start being more aware of the circumstances when they arise, of some different things you could do. And a lot of the time, especially in the beginning, when you're learning how to do these things, the circumstance will pass, the opportunity will pass, and you'll realize, I could have said such and such. I could have done such and such. That's okay. As long as you're recognizing that, and it's like comes up in your head, and you know that that's something you could have done, that is true growth, right? So it's a skill. You're not going to be perfect at it. You're just going to have to learn it, and it's going to take time. Okay, so keep your eyes off the mirror. Chapter 13. Keep your eyes off the mirror, meaning keep your eyes off yourself. And there's different ways to do that. An Albert Schweitzer quote was, "I don't know what your destiny will be, but one thing I know, the only ones among you who will be really happy are those who have sought and found how to serve." Sought and found how to serve. So there's a story about John asking the incredible George Barna to come up and give advice to his top leaders at one of his companies. And John attended this incredible meeting with George Barna, and his whole team was there with him. And John was so excited to spend that time with George Barna and to ask him a lot of questions and have him respond to those questions in front of his team. But as he sat around the table and he heard the enthusiasm of his different leaders in his team, in his company, and they all had tons of questions for George Barna, and they were endless, John just took a seat in the background, meaning he didn't speak up. He stayed quiet. He sat there in the presence of the incredible George Barna, and he could have said all kinds of things. In fact, can you imagine a discussion between George Barna and John Maxwell? Can you even imagine? two incredible minds talking back and forth. Instead, John deferred to the excitement of his leaders, and he let them ask all the questions, and he never said a word, even though he had an entire legal pad of questions. He sat back and he just was content to listen, the book says. He said, doesn't matter that I didn't get to ask my questions, some other time. And his assistant, Linda, says that it's one of the reasons that she loves working for John. She said, I know that because he seems larger than life and has such charisma in front of every audience, there are people out there who think he's got this big ego. They have no idea how much he thinks about others and puts them first. So here's the bottom line. If you focus on others, continually working to give them what they need, then you are able to keep your eyes off your own self in the mirror. And that's a wonderful way to win with people. One of the greatest connection questions is, are we willing to focus on others? And that's in John Maxwell's really big book called Winning with People. And this is the follow-up to Winning with People, okay? It's a big old book. It's very, very deep. It's lots of theories behind it. And this big picture principle states that the entire population of the world, with one minor exception, is composed of other people. Yeah, it's composed of other people. And he says, I've never met a person that truly wins with other people who has not mastered the ability to keep his eyes off the mirror and serve others with dignity. Most people would readily admit that unselfishness is a positive quality. And even the most egocentric individuals possess the desire, even them, deep down, to help other people. But the problem is sometimes changing our behavior so that we get in the habit of focusing on others instead of ourselves. So how do you get into the habit? What are some things that you can do to take your eyes off yourself in the mirror? Well, doing so can give you a sense of purpose. Remember, I don't know if you remember me telling the story about my students and how for the first 10 years of my teaching career, it was all about me and getting my job done the way I wanted to in my time frame and checking off all the things off my list. If a student approached me that was getting me off track, I did not have patience for them. And I only paid attention to the ones that were doing what I asked them to do and who showed me the respect that I felt I deserved. Okay. It was when I changed my mindset and I changed my entire focus after I had the heart attack that I did some prayer, I did some reflective thinking, and I decided to start thinking about and showing up to school every day for the kids. Decided to start putting them as my focus instead of my subject, literally, right? I still had to teach the subject, but I wanted to make them my focus. I prayed for them daily. And I even intentionally prayed for the ones who made my life miserable. And in doing so, it wasn't every day, but many days were very rewarding because I would literally drive home with all kinds of experiences where God started to show me that the reason I was in that classroom was because he put me there. And because he needed my special kind of love to give those kids. And he needed my special kind of heart to be there for them. And he showed that to me. So I found purpose in my job as a teacher that I really didn't like when I started making the focus on them instead of myself. So I want you to just hear that. If you can put the focus on others, you're going to start to see your purpose in what you're doing. Success in life has nothing to do with what you gain in life or accomplish for yourself. It's what you do for other people. And that is a quote by Danny Thomas. And he is an entertainer who starred in the TV show called Make Room for Daddy in the 50s and 60s. And what he did is he ended up founding the St. Jude's Hospital. He founded the St. Jude's Hospital. Now think about the mark he's made on the planet now. The founder of St. Jude's, the greatest children's hospital of all time. That's a pretty big mark on the planet, and he dedicated much of his life to supporting that hospital. I think that he found his purpose. The second way you can do it is focusing on others, and that when you do so, it gives you energy. You're gonna be so energized when you put your focus on others. You're gonna find that you have endless amounts of energy to continue on when the going gets tough. You'll find ways to dig in, and you'll just keep going, and you'll win with people. Another way is focusing on others can give you a sense of contentment. Serving others actually cultivates health. It cultivates health and brings about happiness. Get a load of this Chinese proverb. I thought this was interesting. If you want happiness for an hour, take a nap. If you want happiness for a day, go fishing. If you want happiness for a month, get married. If you want happiness for a year, inherit a fortune. Notice that happiness for a year is inheriting a fortune. Okay, you inherit a fortune, but you're only happy for a year. That means money cannot buy you happiness. There's no way. But if you want happiness for a lifetime, help others. Help others. Find a way to do that. You can actually end up helping yourself when you help other people. Because there's this idea of reciprocity, and there's a research idea called the ultra self. It's a sense of serenity that allows one to focus on others from an emotionally secure place. And when you start helping a lot of people, you get helped. You get better health, you get happiness and longevity. Like you live longer and you have a higher quality of life. Okay, let's go to the next chapter. So that's a good thing. Just take the perspective off yourself, put it on other people. Chapter 14, do for others what they cannot do for themselves. There's so many things that people can't do for themselves, but you can do for them. You've not lived today until you've done something for someone who can never repay you. And that's John Bunyan. So there was a situation where John was in India and he was in a big conference. And he was like the keynote speaker, and everybody was paying attention to him, and everybody wanted to talk to him, and he was the center of attention, and everybody was accolading him and just applauding him and all of that. And what was he doing? He remembered that a friend of his was a diabetic and needed looking after. And he stopped the whole thing and went over to take care of his diabetic friend, to make sure that his diabetic friend had what he needed. Now that is putting your focus on other people, but it's also doing for others what they can't do for themselves. Because when a diabetic starts to have the problems that they do, they don't even realize that they're having those problems, and they need somebody to look after them. And that's what John did. He looked after somebody that couldn't look after themselves in that circumstance. An ambassador and poet, Henry Van Dyke, observed, "There is a loftier ambition than merely to stand high in the world, and it is to stoop down and lift mankind a little higher." What a great perspective. To do for others what they cannot do for themselves. It's just a matter of an attitude. One of the things we can do is introduce others to people that they can't know on their own. And does that mean that you have to know really famous people or influential people? No, that means you might be just connecting some of your friends with another few friends of yours, just to give them some extra connections. So recently, I mean, not recently, I do this all the time, but I help people on my team all the time. And when I talk to them on the phone or I'm coaching them, we do live Zooms, you know, I always ask them, what is it that I can do to help you that you can't do for yourself? What can I do? And recently there was a question that said, I need to meet some more people out in Plexus that are outside of the team. I really need some connections. So what I did is over the next 2 days, 3 days, is I sat down and I thought, I know so many people in Plexus that this person doesn't know. I know so many friends because I love to meet people in Plexus and talk to them and be friends with them. And even if they're not on my team and they don't make me a dime, it really doesn't matter. It's all about love and relationships, friendships, because I really love having good friends in my life. A lot of them are all over the country and they're online. So I sat down and I made a list of some people, and I didn't want to overwhelm her. So I made a list of about 4 people that I knew that they were not my closest friends, but I knew that they had a variety of skills and desires and goals that they were pursuing in Plexus that they could really help and add value to the girl that I was helping. So what I did is I opened up a 3-way chat with each one of them specifically and this girl. And I introduced them, spoke highly of each one of them to each other. And then once they started talking, I backed out of the conversation because I wanted them to have a friendship and I wanted them to get to know each other. And I think that those are going to be some really incredible connections there. And that's something you can do, is connect some of your friends to a few other people that you know and do something for them they can't do for themselves, right? Take others to places where they can't go on their own. I'll never forget that Plexus, I'm serious, I'll never forget this. This is one of the greatest things, and some people look at this and go, how ridiculous this is, but to me, it was life-changing. Plexus did something for me that I could never do for myself. I was a 44-year-old teacher, and we were barely making ends meet, and we argued over finances month after month after month for 20 years. And Plexus, in my first year in the business, sent me to Washington, D.C. for a leaders retreat. And that, to me, was life-changing. I'll never forget that. I could have never bought that plane ticket and paid for that 5-star resort hotel and done all that stuff. And I just couldn't have done it because Plexus paid for a massive, big chunk of that. I was able to take the income that I was making and bought the plane tickets, and they paid for the hotel, and I was able to buy a few amenities, and we got to tour the Capitol. I mean, that was something I could have never done for myself. Plexus did that for us, and I'll never forget. And I keep wanting to go back there, and I'm praying that someday they'll send us back there. So find a way to do something, to make a positive impact on someone that they cannot do for themselves. Maybe you could take your kids to a place where they would never be able to go unless you took them there. Help them to have an absolutely incredible experience. Another thing you can do is offer others opportunities that they cannot reach on their own. What are some opportunities that you can offer to someone? Few things are of a greater value to a prepared person than an opportunity. Why? Because opportunities increase our potential. Opportunities increase our potential. Share ideas with others that they don't possess on their own. Yes, I love hearing ideas from other people. People that share ideas with me always blow my mind because I couldn't come up with it on my own. And you should always be open to gathering your people around you, your friends, your teammates, and get ideas from them. Brainstorm, because 2 minds are better than 1, 3 minds are better than 1, 4 minds are better than 1. And if you put your brains together, You hear the ideas of other people, and what it does is creativity starts to be generated, and then generosity starts happening, and people start to exchange ideas, and it becomes an incredible experience. Have you ever been sitting in a room where creativity has been just unleashed? One person will have an idea, then another person will take it and they'll cultivate it and they'll make it a little bit better, and somebody will offer another idea that kind of supports it. It's absolutely incredible when you're in that kind of situation. So sharing ideas that other people don't possess, that's a great gift you can give. Okay, listen with your heart. Chapter 15, listening with your heart. It's the most important thing in communication, is to hear what is not being said. You really have to listen actively. That's a skill. People sometimes don't come right out and tell you what's really going on. So you have to listen and read between the lines. And that is a skill, guys. That is such a skill. President Woodrow Wilson said, "The ear of the leader must ring with the voices of the people." Whenever I was in a meeting, I wrote a large L at the top of my legal pad to remind myself to listen. And in time, it became a skill I mastered. And that was John Maxwell saying that. He would take his legal pad and write the big letter L to remind himself to listen. If you're already a good listener, you are ahead of the game. All you have to do is listen between the lines for cues that will tell you how others feel. And if you're more like John, it may take you some time to learn the skill of listening with your heart, but anyone can do it. And you don't need to be a trained psychologist. So recently I was out to lunch. I'm going to be honest with you about this, okay? This is what I do. I have people that talk to me all the time. I'm talking to them. I'm in a message with them. We're on the phone, or we've been talking back and forth for months, and all of a sudden they want to meet me, or I've asked them to meet me. But I'm talking about the times where they ask to meet me. They want to meet me. And I'll tell you this right now. I have met with many, many people at lunch, at breakfast, where they've asked for it, and I will sit down with them. I immediately know I'm going to pay the bill because I want them to feel loved. I want them to feel cherished, like they're not just paying for my time, that I am honored to be there with them. That's why I do it. Number two, I know that in many cases, that brunch will never turn into anything. In other words, they might not sign up. They might not become a customer. I cannot tell you I can't count how many times I've actually been with people at a lunch or a brunch or a breakfast, and they have never signed up with me. Just being honest. And I always, the first thought in my mind is always this, as a human being, another one of these things that might not turn out in a new ambassador, where I have to take my time and I have to take my money and I have to invest in this person and it's like a roulette wheel that's going around, and it's like a crapshoot. They may join me, they might not. And honestly, I don't have that thought about every person, but a lot of the times I do. And I am there to help every person. So I will go to lunch with any person that has asked me to go. And when I do, I make myself. I'm not saying that I've always done this well, because I have failed miserably. But I'm getting better and better and better at this. I never talk about me. And when they ask me a question, so what's your story? I've already asked their story. I've asked them 10, 15 questions. They've gone from one thing to the next, and I just keep asking them more questions. And they keep talking to me about it. And I repeat some of the things that they say so that they know that I'm listening to them, and so that they know that I understand what they're telling me and their circumstances and their situation and why they wanted to be there that day and what they're struggling with. How, what's their story? How did they meet their spouse? What's their family like? What are some of their passions? What are some of the greatest things that they learned in their life so far? These are the things that I'm asking them, and it gets them to talk and come out of their shell. And when they finally turn the situation around, they say, so what is your story? I say to myself, very quickly, I remind myself, keep it short. Keep it short. This is not about you. And I remember Eric Johnson, the founder and creator of Teamsy, who I just respect him so much. He says, people want to be the most important thing. You need to be interested in them, not interesting. So your number one goal is not to sit there and talk about yourself and tell your story and make it so great that they just can't have any other option except for to join you because you're so amazing. Remember, the better you make someone feel, the more you listen to them, the more you understand them, the more you check, repeat some of the things they're saying so that they know that you're understanding them, you're hearing them, and you value them. If you make them feel like $1 million like that, that's way more chance of them joining you than you having such a great story that they have no other choice than to join you because you have such a great story. So I'm telling you, I tell myself at the end of a breakfast when they say, well, let me think about this. Let me talk to my husband. Let me do this. Let me take some time. Maybe I should join your 7-day challenge and see what this goes, see how this is. I have one in right now that's doing that. And I know that 2-hour period that I sat with that person is not in vain. That was an investment. That was an investment that might turn out into something where I could change her life, and not only change her life, but through her change a lot of people's lives. And I'm telling you, that's what we have to do. We have to be selfless, and we have to go and give. We have to give of ourselves. How do you learn to listen with your heart? Unclog your ears. Focus on the person. Focus literally on that person. Not just your ideas that are being expressed. Focus on that individual. Unclog your ears. Get rid of all the barriers to effective listening. What are those barriers? Distractions like phones, pagers, being defensive. Don't get defensive with people. Once you begin to protect yourself, others are going to distance themselves from you. Don't be closed-minded. Approach people with an open mind. If you do that, your ears are always going to be open. Don't project onto them. What does that mean? Automatically attributing your own thoughts and your own feelings to others prevents you from perceiving how they feel. So don't project onto them. Don't make assumptions. Don't jump to conclusions. Be attentive to just listen and get rid of your pride. Thinking that what others have to say is less value than what you have to say. In other words, they could learn more from you. You got to get rid of that. You can learn from them. You can learn from them. Get rid of your pride. Listen aggressively. Listen aggressively. A captain of a ship, Captain Michael Abrashoff, would readily get his crew together. In the Navy, that's like unheard of, where the command on a ship is so specific that rarely do you want anybody on your crew to see you in a weak situation. But this guy, this captain, would get his crew together, and he listened aggressively to pick up the good ideas that the crew had for improving the ship's operation. And he did that on a regular basis. And what happened is he began to really respect them as individuals. And no longer were these people nameless bodies just walking around the ship. And they respected him, and they were readily following his commands. A side benefit to listening aggressively and intently is that the moment people see that they are being understood by you, guess what happens? They become more motivated to understand your point of view. They are way more open to hear what you have to say. And they are willing to listen and understand you. And that, my friends, is huge. You cannot discount that. So the best way to persuade others is with your ears. Remember that. So important. And with that, that is our 4 chapters. We're going to start with chapter 16 next week. And I cannot wait for that. We're going to have our little team discussion right now. Join us next week for chapter 16, 17, 18, and 19. And we will also finish up on the 25th of February. So we only have 2 more weeks left for this book. It's an incredible, incredible book. And I look forward to going through the rest of it, the last 9 chapters with you guys. All right. God bless you and have a nice evening.